The decorations were perfect, of course, soft pastel blues and silvers draped across my mother's living room with elegant flower arrangements and tasteful little booties as centerpieces. Exactly the kind of sophisticated baby shower my sister Vanessa had always dreamed of having, and I had helped make it happen despite everything. I am 30 years old, single, and childless. These three facts should be neutral descriptors of my current life situation, but in my family, particularly to my sister, they were evidence of my failure as a woman. Never mind my successful career as an architect, my close circle of friends, or the life I had built for myself in the city. To Vanessa, I was simply someone who hadn't achieved the milestones that mattered. Vanessa and I are only 2 years apart, but we might as well have been raised on different planets. She was the pretty one, the social butterfly, the girl who had her wedding planned by age 12. I was the bookish one, the quiet achiever, the one who would rather design buildings than plan my hypothetical wedding. Our parents loved us both, but they understood Vanessa better. Her goals aligned with their traditional values in a way mine never quite did. When Vanessa met Brandon in college, everyone knew they would get married. He was handsome, came from a good family, and had ambitions to climb the corporate ladder. They were the golden couple, and their wedding 3 years ago was the social event of the season in our small hometown. I was the maid of honor, plastering on a smile as relatives asked when it would be my turn, as if I were waiting in some cosmic line for a husband to be assigned to me. Now, they were expecting their first child, a boy, and the baby shower was the natural next step in Vanessa's picture-perfect life progression. Despite our differences, I wanted to be supportive. I volunteered to help our mother with the planning, ordered custom decorations, and even baked the elaborate cake that sat proudly on the dining room table. I did this because, despite everything, she was my sister and I wanted her to be happy. The first hour of the shower went smoothly. About 20 women, a mix of family members and Vanessa's friends, mingled politely over finger sandwiches and sparkling cider. I circulated with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, making small talk and deflecting the usual questions about my love life with practiced ease. "So, Laura, anyone special in your life these days?" my mother's friend Susan asked, helping herself to a cucumber sandwich. "Just me and my drafting table," I replied with a smile. "I'm working on a really exciting sustainable housing project right now." "Oh, how interesting," Susan said, her eyes already scanning the room for someone more conventionally accomplished to talk to. I was used to this reaction. In our circle, career ambitions were fine for a woman as long as they took a back seat to marriage and motherhood when the time came. My prioritization of my professional goals was viewed as either a temporary phase or, increasingly as I entered my 30s, a sad consolation prize for not finding a husband. Vanessa sat in an ornate chair we had decorated as a makeshift throne, accepting gifts and compliments with equal grace. She looked beautiful, her pregnancy giving her a radiant glow that complemented her carefully styled blonde hair and designer maternity dress. I had to admit, impending motherhood suited her. I was arranging the gift table when I overheard her talking to a group of her friends. "Laura did most of the decorations," she was saying. "She has so much free time, not having a family to take care of." Her friends tittered appropriately. I gritted my teeth but said nothing. This was her day, I reminded myself. I could let a few passive-aggressive comments slide. But as the afternoon wore on, Vanessa's remarks grew increasingly pointed. "Laura, come refill the punch bowl," she called across the room. "You're so good at serving others. Probably why you're still single. Too accommodating." More laughter. I complied, my smile growing strained. Later, as we played a baby-themed trivia game, I correctly answered a question about infant development. "Wow, all those child development books you read are finally paying off," Vanessa said. "If only knowledge could give you a baby of your own." A few uncomfortable glances were exchanged. Even our mother looked embarrassed. But most guests simply chuckled along, unwilling to challenge the pregnant guest of honor. The breaking point came during the gift-opening portion of the shower. Vanessa had made her way through a pile of expensive baby clothes, top-of-the-line gear, and sentimental keepsakes. My gift remained unopened, as I had strategically placed it at the bottom of the pile. "You haven't opened Laura's gift yet," our cousin Jen pointed out. Vanessa looked around. "Where is it? Something practical and sensible, I'm sure. Like Laura." "It's the blue envelope," I said quietly. "I put it at the bottom so you could save it for last." Vanessa rolled her eyes. An envelope? Let me guess, a gift card or a deposit into the baby's college fund? She turned to her audience. Laura's not really the maternal type. She doesn't understand the joy of picking out those tiny baby socks or selecting the perfect stuffed animal. She thinks in terms of square footage and investment potential. I remained silent, though my cheeks burned. This was nothing new. Vanessa had always used me as a foil, a cautionary tale to highlight her own traditional success. At least one of us Turner girls got it right, she continued, warming to her theme. Married by 27, baby by 29, right on schedule. She patted her rounded belly affectionately. Meanwhile, Laura's 30 and still waiting for her life to start. A few women looked down, embarrassed by her directness. Others nodded in agreement. I wouldn't say I'm waiting for anything, I replied evenly. My life is quite full. Full of what? Work? Those artsy city friends of yours? That empty apartment with its minimalist furniture? Vanessa laughed. Let's be honest, Laura. You'd trade it all for what I have in a heartbeat. Something in me snapped then. Not visibly, not in a way anyone could see, but I felt a lifetime of accumulated resentment crystallize into perfect clarity. You seem very confident about that, I said, my voice still calm. Because it's true, Vanessa said, looking around the room for confirmation. Most guests nodded or murmured in agreement. Deep down, you're jealous. You made different choices, and now you're a failure by any traditional standard. No husband, no children, just a career that keeps you too busy to notice how empty your life is. The room went quiet. Even Vanessa seemed to realize she had gone too far. Our mother stepped forward, clearly planning to intervene, but I raised a hand to stop her. Open my gift, Vanessa, I said. Then we can discuss who should be jealous of whom. Something in my tone must have alerted her. Her smile faltered slightly, but she quickly recovered, reaching for the blue envelope with exaggerated curiosity. What could this possibly be? Stocks for the baby? A blueprint for a treehouse he won't be able to use for years? She tore open the envelope, still smiling. Inside was a smaller sealed envelope and a note card. She read the note card first, her expression confused. Sometimes the perfect life isn't so perfect. I'm sorry to be the one to show you this, but you deserve to know, she read aloud. What is this, Laura? Open the second envelope, I said quietly. With a nervous laugh, she did. Inside were printed screenshots of text messages. As she read them, the color drained from her face. This is private, she whispered. What is it, honey? Our mother asked, concerned by the sudden change in her demeanor. Vanessa shook her head, trying to stuff the papers back into the envelope, but our cousin Jen, sitting next to her, had already seen enough to understand. Are those messages from Brandon? She asked, her voice hushed. I nodded. To me, over the past 6 months. The room erupted in confused whispers. Vanessa stared at me, her expression a mixture of rage and devastation. He was just being friendly, she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. Read them aloud, I suggested. Let everyone decide if "what are you wearing right now" and "Vanessa's asleep, I wish you were here instead" qualify as friendly. Vanessa clutched the papers to her chest, her eyes filling with tears. How dare you, she hissed, at my baby shower? You couldn't have talked to me privately? Like you've been so private with your opinions about my life, I replied. You've spent years making me your punching bag, holding up your choices as superior to mine. You called me a jealous failure in front of everyone we know. I thought it was time for some transparency. Our mother rushed to Vanessa's side as tears began streaming down her face. The other guests shifted uncomfortably, some gathering their purses, others pretending to be fascinated by the pattern on their dessert plates. I think you should leave, our mother told me, her voice tight with anger. I stood up, smoothing down my dress. I agree. My gift has been opened. I've said what I needed to say. As I walked toward the door, Vanessa called after me, her voice breaking. You've ruined everything. Are you happy now? I turned back to face her, feeling strangely calm. I didn't ruin anything, Vanessa. I didn't send those messages. I didn't respond to them. I blocked Brandon after the third inappropriate text, but he kept creating new numbers to contact me. I've been saving them all, wondering what to do. I looked around at the shocked faces watching us. I considered telling you privately, many times, but every time I tried, you made another cutting remark about my life choices, my appearance, my worth as a woman. Today was just the final straw. With that, I left, the door closing quietly behind me. The aftermath was as explosive as you might expect. Vanessa called me that night, alternating between sobbing apologies for her behavior and furious accusations that I had deliberately humiliated her. Our mother didn't speak to me for weeks, though our father, in a rare moment of backbone, told me privately that he understood why I had done it, even if he couldn't condone the method. Brandon, when confronted by Vanessa, admitted to sending the messages but claimed they were just a joke and that he had been drunk during most of the exchanges. A weak excuse, especially considering the timestamps showed many were sent during work hours. They entered couples counseling, and last I heard they were trying to work through their issues before the baby arrived. As for me, I returned to the city and my busy, supposedly empty life. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the clean lines and precise measurements of architectural drawings. My friends, those artsy city people Vanessa had dismissed, rallied around me, providing the support and understanding my family couldn't. 3 weeks after the baby shower, I received a text from Vanessa, simple, direct, "Can we talk?" We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between our respective homes. She looked different, subdued, the pregnancy glow dimmed by stress and sleepless nights. "I left him," she said without preamble, "moved back in with Mom and Dad temporarily." I nodded, unsure what to say. "The messages to you weren't the only ones," she continued, staring into her untouched tea. "Once I started looking, I found more, lots more, different women, for years." My heart ached for her despite everything. "I'm sorry, Vanessa." She shook her head. "Don't be. You did me a favor, though I hated you for it at the time." She finally looked up at me. "I need to apologize. Not just for the baby shower, but for everything. Years of putting you down to make myself feel better about my choices." "Why did you feel the need to do that?" I asked, genuinely curious. "You had everything you wanted." "Did I?" She smiled sadly. "I followed the script, married young, settled down, got pregnant on schedule. But there were cracks in the foundation from the beginning. Brandon and we weren't happy. I think I knew, on some level. That's why I resented you so much." "Me? Why?" "Because you were brave enough to forge your own path, to prioritize your happiness over others' expectations. I was jealous of your freedom, your independence." She rested her hands on her belly. "Now, I'm about to be a single mother and I'm terrified." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You're not alone, Vanessa. You have Mom and Dad, and you have me, if you want." Tears filled her eyes. "Even after everything I've said and done, how I treated you?" "You're my sister," I said simply, "and I'm about to be an aunt. Let's start there." The weeks that followed were a slow rebuilding of trust. Vanessa filed for divorce, moved into her own apartment, and began making plans for life as a single parent. I helped her paint the nursery, assemble furniture, and prepare for the baby's arrival. Our mother, initially torn between her daughters, eventually came around, accepting that I had exposed an ugly truth rather than creating it. On a warm Tuesday morning in June, I received a frantic call from our mother. Vanessa was in labor. I left work immediately, driving the 2 hours to the hospital with a strange mix of excitement and trepidation. Nathan James Turner was born at 6:47 that evening, 7 pounds 3 ounces of perfection. When Vanessa, exhausted but radiant, placed him in my arms, something shifted inside me. Not a sudden desire for motherhood, as some might expect, but a profound sense of connection to this tiny new person and his mother. "I want you to be his godmother," Vanessa said, watching me cradle her son. "If you're willing." I looked down at Nathan's sleeping face, then back at my sister. "I'd be honored." Later, as Vanessa dozed and I sat beside her bed, still holding the baby, our mother joined me. "You know," she said quietly, "I always thought you girls were so different. But watching you both these past few months, I've realized how similar you are. Strong, resilient, capable of growth and forgiveness." She touched Nathan's tiny fingers. Different paths, but the same core strength. I smiled, thinking of the journey that had brought us here, from the humiliation of the baby shower to this moment of peace, It had been a winding road of pain and reconciliation. Vanessa stirred, opening her eyes. Is he still asleep? Like an angel, I confirmed. I've been thinking, she said, her voice scratchy from exhaustion. When my lease is up, what would you think about me looking for a place in the city? Closer to you? The suggestion took me by surprise. Really? What about your job, your friends? Here. She shrugged. I can find a new job, and to be honest, most of my friends here were Brandon's friends or couples we knew together. I think I need a fresh start. She hesitated. And I think Nathan needs his aunt in his life, regularly, not just on holidays. The idea of having my sister and nephew nearby, of building a new relationship based on mutual respect rather than competition, filled me with unexpected joy. I'd like that, I said, very much. In the months that followed, Vanessa did relocate to the city. Not to my neighborhood, but close enough for regular dinners, weekend outings, and impromptu visits. I helped her find work at a local real estate office using connections from my architectural firm. She helped me find balance in my work-focused life, insisting I take breaks, meet new people, explore interests beyond my career. As for Nathan, he flourished with the love of his mother, his grandmother who visited often, and his aunt who delighted in introducing him to the wonders of building blocks and picture books about famous structures. Vanessa never returned to her role as the perfect traditional daughter. The divorce, single motherhood, and city living weren't part of the script she had followed so diligently, but she seemed happier, more authentic than she had been in years. Brandon remained a peripheral figure, sending support checks and scheduling occasional visits with his son. The man who had once seemed so central to Vanessa's identity had become a footnote in her new story. As for me, my life continued to evolve as well. My empty existence proved to be anything but. 6 months after Nathan's birth, I was promoted to senior architect at my firm. A year later, I met David, another architect with a passion for sustainable design, at a conference. Our relationship developed naturally, without the pressure of timelines or societal expectations. Vanessa, to her credit, never once asked when we might get married, though she did give her enthusiastic approval when he moved into my apartment after 18 months of dating. On Nathan's 3rd birthday, as we gathered in the park for a dinosaur-themed celebration, I found myself sitting beside Vanessa on a bench, watching David teach Nathan how to fly a kite while our parents took photos. Do you ever think about that day? She asked suddenly. The baby shower? I nodded. Sometimes. Do you? More often than I'd like to admit. She turned to face me. It was the worst day of my life, and also the beginning of something better. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, I replied. Sometimes we need our carefully constructed facades to crumble before we can build something authentic. She smiled at the architectural metaphor. Always the builder. Her expression grew serious. I've never properly thanked you. For what? For having the courage to show me the truth even when it hurt, even when I'd given you every reason to just let me continue in my delusion. I watched as Nathan squealed with delight, the kite soaring above him. That's what sisters do, I guess, hold up mirrors when necessary, even when the reflection isn't pretty. Well, I like what I see now, Vanessa said softly, both in my reflection and in yours. The envelope I gave her that day at the baby shower had contained painful truths that shattered her perfect life. But from those broken pieces, we had both constructed something stronger, more beautiful, and infinitely more real than what had existed before. Sometimes the most valuable gifts aren't wrapped in pretty paper. Sometimes they come in plain blue envelopes, delivered at exactly the right moment by someone who loves you enough to show you the truth, no matter how much it hurts. As Nathan ran toward us, flushed with excitement and demanding cake, I realized that this messy, imperfect, authentic family we had rebuilt was, in its own way, just as picture-perfect as anything Vanessa had once aspired to. Different, unexpected, but no less worthy of celebration. The jealous failure, it turned out, had never been me at all. The real failure would have been remaining silent, allowing falsehoods to flourish and watching my sister live a lie just to maintain the peace. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is disrupt someone's carefully curated happiness to make space for genuine joy. Vanessa caught my eye as she gathered her son into her arms, a silent acknowledgement passing between us. We had both found our way, not along the paths we once imagined, but to a place where we could finally see and appreciate each other clearly. And that, more than any traditional milestone, felt like success.